Hello, everybody. I would like to welcome. We're recording here. Just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I want to welcome everybody to the June 30th, 2026 meeting of the State Bar of California Audit Committee meeting. My name is Mark Tony. I serve as chair of the State Bar Audit Committee. And our first order of business is going to be to have a roll call. If I could ask for a roll call, please.
Yes. Buenaventura.
Present.
Harrison is absent. Huser is absent. Stevens.
Present.
Tony.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. All right, our next item on the agenda is public comment. And, in order to participate in public comment, if you're participating by Zoom, you have a function for virtually raising your hand. Most of you who have used Zoom should be able to find that little hand icon at the bottom of your screen. And if you happen to be calling in and you want to speak, you press *9, and then that will alert the staff that you want to make a comment. Um, each public comment is limited to 2 minutes, and I ask for your courtesy to stick within the topics that the State Bar addresses. So I'm going to start by asking the committee coordinator if there are any members of the public who have signed up ahead of time to speak to us.
Chair Tony, we do not have any advanced signups.
Okay. Well, if you could take a look at the um, Zoom or the phone and let me know.
Yes, we do actually have one raised hand at the moment, Mr. Kai on. So Kai, I will enable your microphone.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, all members. My name is Kion from Sacramento. Political power is controlling State Bar of California Chief Justice and Attorney General not to investigate Sacramento DA office and SPD, make up a story that fake killer Mr. Jun So Far hit and run kill my father Woon Kong on. DA case number 99F0X735. I went to governor's office in Sacramento and San Francisco, but governor's office doesn't take any action. How a state government allows political power to control the government, law enforcement, and justice system to commit obstruction of justice activity. Therefore, it needs all members of State Bar, Board of Trustees, and other committees members to speak up and notify California Senate and Assembly to look into the issue. Someone is trying to control State Bar to commit a obstruction of justice activity to cover up a scandal 26 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Are there any other comments?
There are no more raised hands for public comment.
Raise hands. Um, you will have to remind me because I can't always remember if we need to, if I should ask whether any member has somebody in their noticed location. Can you someone remind me of whether that applies for this meeting?
Chair Tony, since this meeting doesn't require us to notice the individual locations, then you would not have to ask.
Thank you very much. I can't always remember that part of it. So thank you for reminding me. I do appreciate it. Okay, the next item we have is the chair's oral report. And my oral report is basically to thank each of you, trustees for attending, to thank each staff for attending, and to thank everybody who is attending and participating on Zoom. I will move on. The next item is the minutes, particularly the approval of the March 14, 2026 open session minutes for the Audit Committee. I'd like to first ask whether there are any corrections or modifications to the minutes. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
Motion to adopt.
I would entertain a second.
Second.
Okay, we have the motion being made by Trustee Buenaventura. We have it seconded by Trustee Stevens. If I could ask for a roll call, please.
Buenaventura,
Aye.
Harrison is absent, Huser is absent, Stevens,
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
3 ayes, 0 nays, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. The next item we have is a report on the State Bar's Whistleblower Anti-Retaliation Program. And this report is being presented by General Counsel Aline Davchin. I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members of the Audit Committee. This is our third annual report on the Whistleblower Anti-Retaliation Program. Just to provide a brief refresher, and for those who are not familiar with the program, the Board of Trustees approved an interagency agreement with the California Department of Justice for the Whistleblower Anti-Retaliation Program at their meeting in May of 2023. The agreement took effect on June 1st, 2023, and the program permits individuals to bring whistleblower and whistleblower anti-retaliation complaints against the State Bar personnel, which includes current and former employees, agents, officers, as well as members of the Board of Trustees and its sub-entities. The DOJ independently reviews complaints to determine if there is a good faith allegation that State Bar personnel or any of the individuals covered in my earlier comment engaged in improper governmental activity. This means that they failed to act competently, ethically, legally, or properly in accomplishing their duties, and or they engaged in whistleblower retaliation. The whistleblower program was placed in the DOJ to ensure that the investigations are independent and conducted by well-experienced and reputable party with extensive experience conducting reviews of such complaints. The complaints are submitted directly to DOJ without any intervening review by the State Bar. The goal is to increase public trust that whistleblower complaints are taken seriously. And confidentiality and independence are also important to ensuring that individuals feel comfortable reporting complaints. After independent investigation is conducted by DOJ, if there are conclusions or findings substantiating an improper governmental activity, then those findings are reported to the State Bar to review and to take appropriate actions. Again, State Bar is not involved in screening of the complaints. And for those members of the public that may wish to get additional information about the program, we do have a website page dedicated to the program and how to file a complaint. So now turning over to our statistics, you may recall that we last presented to the committee on March 14th, 2025. That presentation included statistics through April 7th, 2025, and today's report provides updates through May 31st of this year. And as I will note later in my presentation, I would be suggesting that at the time that the committee considers its work plan, We want to move this presentation and reporting to cover calendar year now that we have a number of sort of years data. And so we would be proposing to the committee either bringing back the annual report in 2028 so that it would cover the remaining of this year and year 2027, or we can finish off year 2026 in calendar year 2027 and then start reporting to you on annual basis in Q1 that covers the prior calendar year. So it's not sort of 6 months at a time. Since the program started, the DOJ has reviewed approximately 234 complaints. 65% of the complaints received were not allegations of improper governmental activity against state bar personnel or designees or members of the board. This includes 69 complaints that were against an attorney and not state bar personnel, so those were forwarded to Office of Chief Trial Counsel for review. 83 complaints that were not allegations of improper governmental activity against the state bar or complaint against the California attorney. However, these numbers do not include all the misdirected complaints that may have been submitted to DOJ that do not pertain to either state bar or do not pertain to attorney complaints and just completely are unrelated. 35% of the complaints were against state bar personnel, but 94% of those complaints were closed after DOJ analyzed the facts and determined there were no good faith allegations of improper governmental activities. Since 2023, there have only been 3 complaints that moved to investigation stage, but the complaints were ultimately closed after DOJ determined that there was no finding or conclusion of improper governmental activity. The DOJ is currently reviewing 2 complaints to determine whether further investigation is necessary. Now that we have a couple of years worth of data, we can report on some trends. Complaints are distributed roughly equally across the 3 categories: complaints against the state bar, complaints against California licensed attorney, and complaints that fall outside the program's jurisdiction. 2, the number of complaints requiring further investigations has remained very low, only 3 since 2023. Since our last reporting, the DOJ received about 75 complaints. 28 complaints were against the state bar, but none of those complaints required further investigation. 23 complaints were against California licensed attorneys, and those were forwarded to OCTC. 24 complaints were unrelated to the state bar. Between January 1st and 2026 through May 31st, 2026, the DOJ has received about 21 complaints. 5 of those complaints were closed without further investigation. DOJ is currently reviewing 2 complaints to determine whether further investigation is necessary. 6 complaints were against California licensed attorneys, and 8 complaints were unrelated to the state bar. As I mentioned earlier, at the time of your consideration of the future work plan, we will be proposing a different timeline for these reports so that you can get a data that covers the entire calendar year. In terms of the budget, we have included in the staff report how much we've spent to date. And as always, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open this up to my colleagues, fellow trustees, and ask if either of you have any questions you'd like to ask. Yes, please, Trustee Buenaventura.
Yes. So do you know if on the DOJ website, if there is a specific portion of their website that goes directly to someone wanting to file a complaint on the whistleblower statute of the state bar?
I don't believe they do have that, but on our website, they have a direct channel to DOJ. I could look into that. Yeah.
And then the other one suggestion is, I was looking at the complaint form in our website, and if I could, wonder if I could show it. Can I screen share with you this? Let me see.
Of course.
Can you see that?
It's not showing up yet, but it's getting
Okay,
there.
now I can. Thank you.
So you see,
But Mr. Buenaventura, if trustee, like you're also showing other, documents that you may not want to.
take that out there. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. You see that one?
Yes.
I see.
Okay. So if you file this is the form from the website. when you
Mhm.
click on the form, here's where I think it should change because it says once you complete the form, you're submitting it to the bar. And then
It's
over here,
automatically forwards. It automatically forwards to DOJ. That was a limitation on their end. And so that email address goes automatically to them.
right, but what I'm suggesting is that if the complainant sees that it goes to the bar, that's what they see. So I
Mhm.
think maybe if
Got
there's
it.
a way to change the address to not say the bar, but maybe because down here when you're completing the form, it goes straight to them, and they know it's going to
I
go there.
understand. I
So that's
understand.
just my suggestion.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Let us see what we could do. As I recall, that DOJ had a limitation on what they could do, but
Hmm.
perhaps or even create an email address. But we'll take a look and see what we can get done, or maybe even made it, specific, sort of disclaimer that it goes directly to the DOJ. We'll look into that and address it.
Sounds good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you for raising that.
I appreciate very much you taking a look and coming up with a suggestion to improve it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Trustee Stevens, do you have any questions at this time? I had a couple basic questions.
Mhm.
What can you tell us about um, who is making the complaints? I asked this because many whistleblower programs are limited to employees in terms of anti-retaliatory.
Mhm.
That I think was the genesis, in fact, of whistleblower protections, was to protect employees from retaliation. But when I read this, it seems to imply that you do not have to be an employee to qualify as a whistleblower. Can you say a little bit more about that, please?
Correct. It's not limited to employees. Any member of the public or any vendor, anybody who has a grievance against that qualifies as an improper governmental activity can submit a complaint that goes
Okay.
directly to
I think that's
DOJ.
good.
Mhm.
I just wanted that clarified. I think that's a good thing.
Mhm.
Are you able to tell the proportion of employees versus non-employees?
We don't have that data, and we try now to find out information about the complaining witnesses to sort of maintain the integrity of the process, unless, of course, there is, something that we need to take a, responsive action to. But yes, I don't have that, but we could see if DOJ could give us statistics without, you
Yeah, I'm
know,
interested in just the statistics,
yeah.
not any
Hmm.
individual, but
Hmm.
just to get an idea that this is accessible and being
Hmm.
used by employees. I just want to make sure that employees are using it to some extent. That's my
Okay. Okay.
having reassurance, and it doesn't have to be a certain percent by any stretch. But that to me, that remains a core function that I'm interested
Hmm.
in making sure that it fulfills. So that was really my only question.
Okay.
All right. Well, I certainly appreciate the report. I don't see any other questions for now. And this is an item that we do not have action on. So I believe we can go to our next item, which is going to be a report, receipt of the annual report of the Public Trust Liaison. And this is being presented by the Public Trust Liaison, Sabrina Baptista.
Hello. Good afternoon,
Welcome,
everyone.
welcome. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself before you go into the process, because I do not believe we have been introduced.
Oh my goodness. So yes, I recently was hired by the State Bar of California into the Public Trust Liaison role. So just been here a few months, so it's so wonderful to meet you and the other community members. I'm coming to the bar with a history of sort of public interest advocacy and sort of compliance reporting. I've been an attorney for about 20 years, and I have a background in compliance and customer service. Most recently, I led one of BART's civil rights departments, overseeing all of the EEO Title VII and all of the civil rights environmental justice work.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm very eager to hear your presentation.
Oh, thank you so much. Now let me find a way to share my screen. One moment, please.
That's okay.
One moment. Sorry. PowerPoint is always tricky in the afternoon. I don't know what it is. Great. There we go. Okay, let's try it again. Fortunately, it's not allowing me to share. Let me try one more time.
Now, is this the PowerPoint portion of the presentation you're looking at? Because there were 3 documents for this particular. Does anyone else have access to that particular presentation that you could share, and then Sabrina could walk us through it, perhaps?
Yes, let me try it one last time to
Okay, well, we'll figure out a way.
see. Okay, I think we got it.
All right.
Technology finally gets to work here.
All
Okay,
right.
it's wonderful. So now let me just
Okay.
get to this. Close that out.
And Sabrina, if you wouldn't mind putting it in presentation mode for us when you have a second.
All
Perfect.
right. That's looking good.
Everyone got it? Thank you so
Yep.
much for your patience.
Okay.
As shared, I am the new Public Trust Liaison, and I'm here to walk all of you through the 2025 Public Trust Liaison Annual Report. So as we move through 2025, there are a number of amazing highlights that are coming out of this office. Specifically, we are seeing almost 2,000 inquiries resolved. I mean, this suggests that the demand for this office, is ever increasing. We're seeing the launch of the attorney-client bridge program that resolved 266 attorney-client communications and file return disputes without an adversarial process, without a complaint being filed. It really does serve the public to be able to have these avenues. We've expanded the office, so this includes added assistance for incarcerated individuals and in-person visitors to the State Bar office, and our continued sort of commitment to enhance collaboration with our internal partners and our externals to improve the service delivery and public access. Specifically, one of the most important service offerings that the bar still offers is an in-person live agent. Unlike a lot of organizations who may call, you may not get a person, you may get an AI. We actually still offer live in-person support. And in 2025, 77,000 calls were fielded. This is an extraordinary number considering the size of the team is generally 4 public trust representatives. So they're doing an exceptional amount of work, making sure that the public actually is served and they're able to connect with a person in their time of search or need or support. The largest category still remains the certified loyal referral service, followed by the other categories of attorney fees or support filing a complaint. This continues to be a very positive trend. So I just want to take a moment to just acknowledge and appreciate how incredibly difficult this work is and how incredibly important it is to the public that we serve. Moving forward, the PTLI activity, here we are with our special programs. In 2025, the office received 1,667 new inquiries. This is obviously an amazing increase over the years as this office continues to develop, continues to be recognized, continues to fully understand how we can support and protect the public. In prior years, based on the way the office was structured, there was carryover this in 2025. I want to say this year, but we're in 2025 still. There was no carryovers. They actually resolved them all in the same year, and we actually contribute this to a fully staffed office and the ability to use technology to manage these claims. So it actually is an amazing achievement coming out of this office. In addition to sort of the overall numbers, I think it's also really important to understand thematically how the different inquiries have shifted over time. So in 2023, closer to its founding, we see the distinction of discipline being, the leading indicator of inquiries, and 2024 seeing that shift. Again, this is contributed to a number of different factors. And then in 2025, we see a dramatic shift going from 63% obviously to 40%. Also, you'll note that the other category has also increased, continues to increase. And this in part is because our wonderful colleagues in the Strategic Communication Department have been very successful in sort of sharing and educating the public as to the office and what we can do. Sometimes people contact us, and that's wonderful. Sometimes we're not able to help them, but that is why that category continues to change. It actually is correlating with the increased number of tickets. The new ACBP inquiry overview, again, launched last year with 529, increasing to 729. This is wonderful. We hope to continue to acknowledge and expand the inquiries. Again, this is a really positive program. It allows people to not go through that complaint process. It allows attorneys to have an informal and voluntary process to be able to deal with these internal concerns. And one of the reasons why this is so important is it really relates to the correlation of what we're seeing on the impact of the OCTC complaints with regards to the program. These trend lines are exactly what we'd want to see. Specifically, that as the ACBP program increases with the ticket resolutions, our colleagues in the OCTC communication return of file closures decrease. So this is a wonderful example of, as we continue to grow and expand this department, we continue to hope and support our colleagues in OCTC, helping them sort of offset client files that we can help support. So this, not often do I get to say that these trend lines are wonderful, but this is definitely one of those times where I'm happy to say they're definitely going in the right direction. Specifically, as I had mentioned before, we have an incredible Office of Strategic Communication and Stakeholder Engagement, and they continue to outline, really impactful outreach and communication campaigns. In 2025, the English and Spanish campaigns were very effective, and you can see that sort of in the earlier slides. Moving forward, they continue to sort of identify what areas, would be sort of benefited from continued support and communication. So we will continue to partner with them and hope to see ever growing success with our education, outreach, and communications campaign. One of the new expanded features is the building visitor logs. So one of the situations that occurs is people aren't able to talk on the phone, or they want to talk to someone in person, so they come to our various offices. And then this particular slide shows us, why people are coming to visit in person. And we can see over overwhelmingly 67 regulations at sort of the top of the list, not a surprise, as well as followed by admissions, and then other categories like OCTC. So we will continue to watch these trends. We want to make sure that people who do come to visit us, that their visit is acknowledged, and their concerns are routed to the appropriate department in a timely and efficient manner. Additionally, we have these incarcerated person letters. One of the reasons why this is so important is because often the letters are handwritten. So we want to make sure that people are not necessarily biased by the information. So our office receives these letters, we transcribe them, and then we make sure they get to the right department. Here you're seeing the same similar trend as with the call logs, where we are looking at lawyer referral services as one of the most important services that we provide that the public really appreciates and seeks our guidance on. Moving forward in 2026, we have a few recommendations. The prior year recommendations were all accepted and fulfilled. So we're very grateful to our colleagues in OCTC and the Office of Admissions for being so collaborative with us with regards to how we can continue to iterate and improve. So with the OCTC, we're just looking for a new communication model, which allows us to have more proactive knowledge. This has been furthered by us having standing monthly meetings. So we already are having sort of a normal cadence where we're having these obligations. So it's not necessarily ad hoc, but on a regular schedule, which will be successful. And then the Office of Admissions, similarly, we are looking for additional communications. Like OCTC, we do have regular meetings with our colleagues in addition to ad hoc meetings as needed, as well as the request to develop just some infographics that we've put together just so people can understand maybe in slightly different ways how one goes from applicant to attorney. That said, it's been a very exciting couple months, but the office seems to be very well staffed and funded, and we look forward to continuing those efforts in 2026.
Thank you very much. That was a model in length of a report. Both you and Aline really hit it on the nose in terms of the preferred length. I really appreciate that. And I want to open it up to questions from my fellow trustees. Questions, comments? Yes, please. Trustee Stevens.
Comment is, wow, good work. And I think you answered my question, which is, do I understand correctly? There are 4 people who are basically rowing that boat.
Well, there's a lot of people rowing the boat at the State Bar, but there are 4 PTRs representatives that are actually the front line. Yes.
Outstanding. Trustee Buenaventura, any questions? Okay. I have a couple of quick questions. There was a slide that talked about eligible versus ineligible, and I didn't understand what it meant. And if you could explain what that means, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. The criteria to participate in the program,
Yes.
for example, is the complaint filing is an excellent one. So, for example, if someone comes to us after they have filed a complaint, they're not eligible for this particular program.
This is the bridge program.
Yes.
Yes.
Or similarly with the other items, it is something that they're coming to us, but it's not something that we can necessarily help them with regards to participation or being eligible in that program. However, we do our best to make sure that if there's anything we can do, we do.
Okay, great. That's a great response. I am very impressed
Thank you.
by this report, by the outcomes. I'm particularly impressed by the no backlog. That's pretty amazing there.
Thank you.
And what I'm interested in hearing is what is the plan for sharing this report these results, what happens from here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the report is actually put on to the website, the full report that you see. We'll be sharing it obviously with the board of the full board in July. So I look forward to seeing all of you in person at that time. Also,
Mhm.
this information, parts of it are actually publicly available in the Public Trust Liaison dashboard. So as people have come to our page, they can see the contact center. They can also see the other aspects of the work.
I think that's outstanding, to have it available. And maybe I could ask you, Laura, just to think about ways to make sure that Judiciary Committee members see this report, and that other key stakeholders proactively are sent and see this report, because I don't care. I would send it to the journalists, our journalist list. Okay. This is the kind of thing that I think is outstanding and does not always by itself get the recognition that it deserves. And I think it is our job to do what we can to push it out to areas, key arenas like the media, like policymakers, proactively so they see some of this work and some of the successes are highlighted. That's
Yes, we
what I do.
definitely can take a look at that. And we do have an upcoming diversion report that goes to the legislature. I believe it's April of 2027,
Mhm.
that will contain the information, the attorney-client bridge program information and the like. And it also goes in our annual digital report. But certainly we can look at all the opportunities. I love sharing the good news,
Yeah.
and we'll take a look at that.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And my only other comment on that is whenever possible, I think it's great to share good news in real time. So anyway, and it can always be repeated later. Any other comments? This again is an item like the last item where it's report only, discussion only. We have no action item to take on this.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
yeah, just to piggyback, Dr. Tony, on what you were saying, we should get it out in the press in part because there are both consumers and lawyers who don't know that the resource is available, and it is extremely powerful in
Mm.
resolving disputes before they actually become a problem. So it would be really, worth everybody having the opportunity to know that it's available.
Trustee Stevens, I think that's a great idea, and I think that based on this discussion, the staff can do their own brainstorming about, how, maybe there are bar associations. I would appreciate a little announcement about this. Things like that are in our world that take your point, Trustee Stevens, and also use it as an opportunity to you know, act as a resource both to the public, but also to the profession. And that is really what this program does, is it offers benefits to both. And I think that's positive. Well, I want to thank you again, Sabrina, for the report. We always love good news here. And this is great news. And so before we wrap up, we're pretty much at the end of the agenda. I just wanted to make sure, is there anything else anybody wants to make sure I am not leaving out or forgetting? Doesn't sound like it. In that case, I want to thank everybody for participating in this meeting, everybody for watching and seeing what's going on. And I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good to see everybody.
Thank you.